Hi, in this edition of People in AI, it is my pleasure to speak with Robert Barreto, who work on the Microsoft Agent Framework team. So that he's actually building what we all use. In the following interview, we talk semantic kernel, the transition to Agent Framework, and how it is to, in general, work on such a big and important offering from Microsoft. So let's get into the interview.
Welcome to our guest. We have had some of these talks before, but now we actually get some inside information, not any disclosures or anything, but my guest today is Roger from Microsoft and from the Agent Framework team. Very much thank you to you, Roger, for taking the time to do this. But you might want to introduce yourself to the audience who don't know you yet.
Absolutely, Rasmus, and thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. I'm very glad to be part of this interview and share more about myself and the agent framework and everything that we are about to talk here. Just a little bit about myself. I work with IT since the beginning of the internet. I was kind of very fortunate starting work in a startup company in the beginning of 2001, already jumping to classic ASP and JavaScript when the only browser was Internet Explorer. So I've been from a long journey and where there was no cloud computing. So basically 25 years of experience going through front end, full stack, back end, cloud, all of those things and fancy words. I've been going through those and throughout my career in many different companies as well, businesses, content management systems, RPA, automation, and even working specifically in DevSecOps, and even having a quick check on the financial market. I worked for a moment in a stock management firm as one of the operation, plus doing Excel with VBA. So I never left the programming sphere. I was always inspired and trying to automate whatever I can. So yeah, automation is I think my surname basically.
Yeah, I have that too. We might be in the family then.
Yeah, if you can press a button and have your problem sorted and you can do other things with your time, yeah, that's me. So yeah, that my career started really soon, and I've been in the beginning of my career. I'm originally born from Brazil, Rio de Janeiro, and I spent there for the past 20 years, less than that. And I came to Ireland in 2019, pre-COVID. Invited for working for Verizon before Microsoft. I worked there in a fleet management system, and then I jumped into Microsoft after COVID in 2021. So Microsoft before 2022 ChatGPT story, AI and everything like that. I was working also more like in workflow automation setups. So was also looking for transforming the workplace after the COVID hit, where we had that surge in people working from home, and there was strong, and there's still strong opportunities to people that work from home to automate their office, their experience. So I was in a project like that, and after the GPT moment, later to 2022, about December, beginning of January, I was invited internally to work in a, at the moment, secret project with some of my teams, some of my current colleagues at the moment. So, and that project ended up being semantic kernel. So since the inception moment, I've been working in AI since the beginning. So all those concepts were very new, very fresh for me, and I was again very fortunate to jump in the beginning on this AI hype. Have any questions? Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, semantic kernel was the predecessor to agent framework for those who haven't been in long enough in the
Yeah.
space. But it really was a key moment for Microsoft because it was the first time that Gen AI came along,
Yeah.
and it must have been fun to both fun and frustrating because it was pioneer days back then where you needed to build almost everything.
Yeah, it was it's a very greenfield project because you didn't have anything. The models were quite new at that stage. There was no function calling. There was none of those features that we are aware today. And by far, the models GPT-3 and just the GPT-4 just came a little bit after the semantic kernel was announced publicly. But the overall story is at that moment, at that stage when semantic kernel was announced, there was nothing in the .NET ecosystem for AI development. So we were in literally a zero field. We were literally trying to build the idea of having something, okay, how we can make the life easier for the Python developer and the .NET developer at that stage that you only had LangChain at the moment, how we could have something that is both Python and .NET enterprise and enterprise grade, right? So all the projects were more focused on experimental stuff and they were not production grade. And we wanted something that would be enterprise friendly with versioning, not breaking changes, and something that could last longer. So this was the most strong moat of semantic kernel, and by consequence, agent framework. And yeah, that was a very interesting journey in the beginning, and was even funny because in the beginning of semantic kernel, we have using name skills but it didn't catch up. OpenAI and other providers were using other names for it, like plugins, and the concept skills didn't take very much at that stage, but we were already using that approach in the beginning.
Was that the thing you called handlebars, and or is that there was this template system I know before tools?
Yeah, so before the tools, we had in the semantic kernel in the beginning, we have a folder that has a text file where there was a prompt with a text file. Is literally the idea of skills today,
Cool.
skills MD. But the thing is, at that stage, there was no function calling. The models were not smart enough. The context windows were limited to 8,000 characters. So the idea was correct at that stage, but didn't catch up, didn't stick, because the technology was not ready at that stage. So it was a funny thing to look back from who work at that stage to see, okay, we were right at
I was
that
actually a
moment.
little late to that party because I came in at September 2024 first. So you've been out quite a while there. And that was just when tooling came along. And somewhat we were so unsure if tooling was the right thing or not. Could they actually do it? And
Yeah,
looking back,
was very funny in the beginning because we didn't have tooling, and one thing that we did in semantic kernel was, okay, how we can make function calling without the model knowing how to call functions. So the first approach we had in semantic kernel we called planning in semantic kernel, where you provide to the model XMLs and you try to force the model to obey to a structure. And the model was quite smart at that stage, and they give you back a response in XML or in a JSON format. Sometimes it was sketchy, sometimes it didn't work, but was the beginning of function calling until I believe OpenAI pre-trained the model to be schema friendly and JSON compatible, and then the function calling became something that was usable and predictable. But yeah, it was funny because I even did one of the features with the manager that at that stage that was kind of dynamic flows, where in the XML you could make the model create your workflow dynamically based on your question. So it create the ifs and else's and everything like that, but for the flow to happen, not necessarily code to run, but the flow to happen. But yeah, it didn't work out because at that stage the models were not smart enough for today. But yeah, semantic kernel was kind of a very green field on that perspective.
Yeah.
But,
and now we have semantic kernel 2.0 or agent framework. So from the outside, it was very interesting to see that suddenly two teams merged, and there was a lot of secrecy on the naming due to some marketing, I know. But in October, we finally got it, and to be honest, the first time I saw it and tried it out and saw that I could do the same as semantic kernel and half the code, I was sold. There was some bugs in the beginning, but it's close to what we actually got here a couple of weeks ago in the version 1.0.
Yeah, agent framework is our learnings from all the things that we discovered in semantic kernel, including the Microsoft Extensions AI, which was also a learning from semantic kernel abstractions that we had at the stage. And everything was kind of pointing towards a really 2.0, like a new framework that we, with all the learnings from AutoGen, semantic kernel team, Microsoft Extensions AI team, we came together how we can, from all this experience, to really define one story, not multiple stories, for what will be the open source let's say investment into the agentic world from Microsoft in the .NET and Python space.
Yeah, and to the outside, Microsoft Extension AI was very confusing at the beginning. Was it a replacement of semantic kernel? But it's this low-level part of it that, of course, can do much of it. But I definitely don't want to build anything enterprise without agent framework on top personally.
The story with Microsoft Extensions, I participated myself very much in the beginning. Was and is still Extensions AI is not agentic first, and semantic kernel was agentic first, including an agent framework by its name, and workflows and all of those high abstractions. We didn't have a good story in the .NET to how we can define lower level abstractions. What is a chat client? Because we had many different libraries from different providers, Anthropic, Google, Gemini, and many others. And you didn't want to implement one client for all of those. And in the beginning, and still for now, today, most of the providers, they have their OpenAI specific port of their API, which is fine. But at that stage, they were all native. They were all very specific. And the Microsoft Extensions AI kicking exactly to be this kind of layer of abstraction that, I just need to worry about iChat client and I get all sorted.
It is such a brilliant way of doing things, because nobody can almost say no to .NET, but they could easily say no to something they didn't know called semantic kernel or agent framework, but they couldn't say no to .NET. So it was a brilliant move in how that was done, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, I really like as well the way, and was really interesting to have talking with with people that you always read books about, and you talk
Stephen
with them.
Yes,
Stephen Toub, Steven Sanderson, and names that are very high considered in the .NET world, and it was really humbling having their participation, their collaboration, be able to speak with them and even speak nowadays as well. So it was a very nice networking perspective, and as well as the learning is incredible. The things that we thought about semantic kernel and the learnings, one of the big learnings from engineering perspective is how you build something that can last longer, is simple to be built, and is enterprise standard. So you don't break stuff. It's solid, and has all the approvals, all the guardrails for good software. So it's
all
immense.
the virtual core methods that you put in behind the scenes looks like too much, but it is to not break stuff.
Yeah. So this agent framework, and nowadays super hyped with the launch 1.0, and it's just the beginning. And now skills are coming as an abstraction, many features to come as well. Can't say much at the moment.
No,
but
that's totally
basically, I think the path is really amazing. Looking forward, all this new stuff coming in, and the shape of the marketplace in the AI world, I think was a really nice step.
Have you been focused on specific features in semantic kernel? Do you have any favorites or anything in the product?
Regarding agent framework, I believe. Semantic kernel. I've been working semantic kernel in pretty much many different features, and including the ones that I'm currently working agent framework. I'm very much into the development. So let's come back to the beginning. So in the agent framework, we are a core team, and the best way to have a framework of this size well developed is some core engineers. They become responsible for some aspects of the repository, and one of those that I was that I picked up and selected for was really thinking about the micro middleware architecture for the agent framework. I participated myself in the middleware process in the semantic kernel. On the agent framework, I also had strong participation in the abstractions for the chat client agent. And many of the integrations, architecture of the framework as a whole. So including the demos and the samples and many other aspects of the framework. So so from the middleware, one thing that I really like about it is how you can have different, how it is composed, in the sense that I can start sharing my screen, just showing something here,
please.
maybe for a good example.
That will also help those who might not have worked with the middleware too much yet to know what exactly it is. I have tried to cover it as much as possible on my channel, but let's get it from the real expert.
Let's close other tabs. So middleware. I hope it's not too small.
It's perfect. I also run 130%, so that normally works.
Perfect. So the middleware, what I like most about middleware is that capability that you have your own agent, and you can just from the agent instance, you can transform that instance in a builder, And from that builder, you can just add multiple middlewares in a pipeline sequence. So you can add a function calling middleware, you can add your specific agent middleware. You can combine a sequence of middlewares that very similar to how you normally are using ASP.NET or other frameworks, MVC. You can really easily add things that does a work before the agent is invoked, before the information goes to the agent, and after it comes from the agent. So you have the flexibility to intercept the message, to alter the message and change before it goes to the LLM and after it comes from the LLM and before it reaches the user. So many of those, including PII detection, guardrails, and whatnot, other options you have like login or telemetry or any type of implementations. And this is not just limited to the how agent framework does. You can combine in different levels how you do this middleware. So when you create an agent, for example, you can also define how will be your chat client middleware. So this architecture was also very well based in how we have this same experience in Microsoft Extensions AI. So it was very common to see customers coming to agent framework that were already used to how that works in Microsoft Extensions AI. And we try to, when you use both of them, you wouldn't have conflicting experiences per se. So the approach we had with agents were very similar in the sense that, okay, from the learning that we had in Extensions AI, I think that is very valid to have the same experience into the agent framework, right? So, and one thing that we provide into the agent framework abstractions that make it easier to create your own middleware. So, for example, here, when we create a PII middleware, you can. This is basically a delegate. It's a function that just needs to have this signature, returns a task. And in this case, I'm creating a middleware that returns agent response. It's a function for the agent response and give you back a transformed response for your agent. So
it's and they run before the real call actually happens, as far as I understand. So it's agents within agents, or whatever you want inside.
Yep. And one curious thing in here is actually this is not the middleware. This is a facilitator. This is an extension that makes it easier to create the middleware, because here when I I can't, because once I'm in the meeting, I cannot use my. When you hit use, you have five different types of extensions, right? Let me bring this back here. Yeah, so I have 5 different types. And this first is the agent middleware, where you get the agent that you're extending and you return an agent. That's why it's a func. So it's a factory where you receive the original agent and you give back another agent transformed with whatever transformation you want. This is basically how you create a middleware from one agent to give you back another agent. This is the most common one.
You can give extra tools or something, for example?
Yeah, you can add extra tools. You can change how the message of the agent will be. So it's a common pattern if you want just to compose and do a literally agent to agent composition. And yeah, but if you are about to use this, you normally would do this if you have a very specific agent implementation. But the majority of the scenarios, you don't want to implement the whole agent as a decoration. You just want to, okay, I want to add the middleware just when I make a run a sync, which is when I call the agent, I just want to change one message. I don't necessarily want to create a whole new agent just to change a message or observe a message or something like that. So for those other scenarios, we have the other extensions. Like, okay, I want to provide, I want to do dependency injection. This is one of the scenarios where, okay, I want to provide a service provider for my agent, so it works with dependency injection. And this also applies for scenarios where you want your function calling to also have support for your specific customized dependency injection. And you have other scenarios that are more flexible. For example, when you want to use, when you want to just intercept the calling of the function. So this is like a big definition of the function, but it's very simple. The definition of this function is when you use this extension, you can just provide the agent name. You can just provide the AI agents. So agent name, agents.
Original agent is called. Oh, no.
Yeah, so you provide an agent, you get the context, and you have here a next function.
Yeah, similar to ASP.NET that just
and a
determine if you
cancellation
go.
token.
Yeah.
And then you provide in here, you provide what is the next. Let me just help.
I think it's context. You just get it. I tend to put it out in a method, so it's easier to understand. Myself and you.
Is that when I normally use a hotkey to show this, but the hotkey is into the meeting. Is going to the overlay of the meeting.
But you have the function calling middleware 2 lines above. We could go into
so
that.
You just pass down, I think. If I'm not wrong. Just let me. The next here. Anyways, let me.
This is the hard part of Func. I tend to actually put the delegates in so I can actually give it names myself. But
so let me have a close look here. So you passed a number of chat message, a session, and a run options. So this is what would you pass into the internal one. Let me go back there so I have this sorted. So you have the this is the context. 1 second. This is we have different constructors, including this. And this is not the next I'm looking for. Let me jump back there. So this is the context. Which one is the context?
It's the function called context.
I'm just find context here.
By the way, I'm so amazed about the very, very good XML summaries that are in this.
This was one of the things that we were really keen in having. So when you look at the agent framework for each of the functions in the agent framework, we have a very clear definition of what all of those functions does. So this helps even the agentic building, agentic migration, if you have a solution. So everything is very well explained into the architecture.
Could you explain a little about middleware versus AI context provider? Wesley's favorite.
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because in theory you can do the same with both.
Yeah.
But the context provider has some facilitations that with middleware you would have to write a little bit more and have to do a bit more of code, right? So context providers allow you to give you a specific functions. Let me show this. Yeah, context provider. There we go. So AI context providers give you methods that you can use into the agent framework, like invoking async and invoked async. Those allows you to provide functionality to your agent invocation. So one good example is also provide information about the session, about the agent, and how you can retrieve information. So it's an abstractions that make it easy to get information for your session and retrieve information from your agent session before the message go to the agent and after. So
yeah, that it's actually one of my favorite features in that, for example, being on the fly tool calling. So you can make an agent say, is this message needing this and this tool, and on the fly put them in and save a lot of tokens. But I also hate it a bit because Wesley, who is made so many changes to it just before the release candidate, but it landed in a good place.
Yeah, and one thing that is funny about this is when we are reaching very close to the 1.0, it's a very big responsibility putting something there, and we have to test all the scenarios. So what Wesley, which is one of the SMEs responsible for the context provider, went through was really checking every edge case scenario that he was going through the context provider and seeing, okay, this works for this works for that, but this breaks in this scenario, this doesn't work for that scenario. So that's normally what happened for not just agent framework. Also, when we were in semantic kernel, was crazy the amount of changes in the right before 1.0. Basically we had breaking changes everywhere. So because it's kind of our last chance of making big changes in the API before we are committed to a semantic version into not breaking moving forward, because we really need to be committed to the version and make sure that everything that we release, minor or patch, doesn't break at all. And having a new major version is really a big thing from Agent Framework or any other flagship.
Yeah, and the reason is, of course, that all these big enterprise companies, they don't want to touch anything that is pre-release, and so yeah. I luckily, I put that in quotation mark, missed version 1.0 of semantic kernel. So I wasn't part of the preview. I just got just after it was released, so I missed that one. But building, like, I have 80 different samples myself in Agent Framework right now. That was a tough thing to keep track of in the last steps before release candidate 1. But it's the right thing to do. It's better to do it now than after the fact and tickle in different small breaking changes here and there, because that would totally lose the confidence from the big enterprise companies out there.
Yeah, and that's one of the main reasons why we are very keen in not breaking and having something solid, so everyone can build their products and don't be surprised by tomorrow something breaking on.
Yeah, And you really see it. I have spent a lot of time digging into what you do, and I've seen some of your design documents you put into they are in the repo as well, and you can really see that. Oh, should we do this? Should we do this? Should we do? It must have been some fairly long and decisive meetings to go and do that.
Absolutely. And if I jump quick, close. If I go here, for example, semantic kernel, the process that we go through are basically very much documented. So in the docs, we have the decisions, and here are all the records. When we think about a big feature, we normally put here what was our thought process on the features. For example, AGUI support. We go for what were the decision drivers, the considered options, the outcome, and this goes to meetings. We have deciders in the beginning, who went through all of this, who spoke to long running process like from Sergey and Wesley, Stephen Tube, so including myself as well. So we discuss all of those, go through meetings and think, okay, how we can have this solution without extra over architecture. We all go through multiple sessions of investigations and being the devil advocate of each other, validating, okay, well, what if this goes wrong? What if that goes wrong? And what if this goes right or too much right? What is the Pareto? What is the 5% that we are just think about the 5% or not the 95% or 80%? So it's very much of a balance in between not being do too much and having something that provides enough experience for majority of people, because we want to make and even to consider that as an abstraction. So the discussion about abstraction is very much into this, and this applies since semantic kernel extensions when we think about agent framework, which is basically an abstractions for agentic applications. We need to be very conservative on how we and which abstractions we bring in, because we need to be very lean in the abstractions that we bring to the table.
Yeah, and I'm completely. I would do the same if I were in the team, but of course it always hurts discoverability a bit. For example, the breaking glass way of setting reasoning effort and stuff like that can be tricky to understand, at least for newbies in the framework, because suddenly we go from very easy 3 lines of code and you have an agent to multiple lines, but it makes sense so as long as there's no shared commitment on how to do the more edge case stuff in the systems. And it also must be hard to have dependencies on OpenAI by themselves, and they suddenly introduce something new. But that's just the way it is. We need to be at the forefront.
Yeah, and that's also a very interesting point that you're touching here, the breaking glass capability.
Yeah.
Because when we think about SDK, we have to present abstractions, but we don't want to cripple you if you want to break the box. Okay, the abstractions is too abstract, or I want to have a fine tune, or I want to have access to what is the underlying that the abstractions by itself is not enough for me. So that was one of the things that I really like about when we think about an SDK like semantic kernel agent framework or extensions AI, is this way of how we not block our customers if they need to have access to something very specific. So we allow all of them to, okay, you want to break glass to do this, you have all the possibilities of doing so and not be crippled or blocked by that change.
Yeah, it's better to have the option have a little more ugly code than not have the option at all.
Yeah, and what normally happens is when you break glass today, maybe tomorrow you have the abstractions for that.
Exactly.
Because it was just a matter of time before we have enough examples, different providers that accepted that pattern, that okay, now it's worth, because we can prove that one abstraction works towards not just one provider like OpenAI, which is normally was the first one that kind of brought up all of those different concepts like streaming and thinking mode and all of those things that we see today. They were the forefront, and they basically defined the contract. But the new providers, as they came in, they start to have their own specific contracts. But once we have 3, 4, 5 different providers, big providers, small, that also starting to talk the same language, okay, now it makes sense to have a thinking mode, or having function calling that works for all of them, and so forth.
Yeah. Let's switch tracks a bit because the agent framework team, it's not only in Ireland, it's also in US and also in Asia, as far as I understand.
Yeah, we have 24/7. Let's say that this way, a multi-zone working team. So we have people in Netherlands, we have in Ireland, United States, South Korea, and probably somewhere else. And we are basically all time online. The team is normally, as I spoke before, is split in different as subject matter experts, SMEs, focus on, for example, context providers, myself in middlewares and connectors and Foundry integrations, provider specific integrations, others in agent skills, background, tasks, and all of that stuff. And we have also, for the Python side, we have people dedicated to the Python side of the agent framework, and we have to talk every single day for checking, because it's not just about one language, but really to bring a feature across both of them, making sure that we follow the idiomacy of each language, but keep the abstractions and the components aligned in the
so feature parity as much as possible.
Exactly. Yeah, and we are basically a multicultural world.
I find back in my day, I worked with Germany and US, and I thought that was a lot.
And I would say more as well. This is the core team, but I consider Semantic Kernel, you as a team of Semantic Kernel, and many others contributors that are always present, always in the office hours. The team is the world, I would say. In open source, everyone can contribute and is very welcomed to bring ideas to discuss. And this is just the core team. And we all we do is really think about one system and review whatever comes in to make sure that has the standards of production grade, and make sure that everything's safe, is not vulnerable. But the team is the world, basically. But
very cool. To round off this, what about AI in general and any hobby projects from your side? I guess you, of course, making this big framework takes a lot of time, and I guess it's also a passion project of yours as well, being so integral to it, of course. But do you use any AI yourself in anything?
Absolutely. So Since semantic kernel and agent framework, I've been using AI and more and more. And it's very kind of impressive the amount of information that comes, and now we can trust it even more. Before it was limited to a specific function. You have to be very conscious about what you ask and how you let this change the code. But since I would say Anthropic, Opus, the boon of Cloud Code, and now GitHub Copilot client, the models became so good that most of the time you can rely on review processes to see where the AI thinks ahead of time. So sometimes you have an issue that comes to the repo. You cannot see that issue, but you can start something on the side and check what was the initial thought of the model with the review. Is very common for me when I'm addressing issues, or some questions even come in my direction when I'm not SME. I make questions to the agent regarding the agent framework, or basically any integrations. And it's very common to have more than 10 or agents open, not necessarily running, but for me it's basically normal have 3 or 4 agents running at the same time.
Yeah, me too. And we have reached a point where it's almost more surprising when it actually do make mistakes a few times now. A year ago, it was 80% mistakes, 20% yay, it worked. Let's hope it does the next time.
Yeah.
Now it's becoming really reliable. Of course, it's still not deterministic, but we can work around that by letting other agents take care of that.
Yeah, we see. Yeah, and we see this pattern really starting to grow and become more and more normal, where the bottlenecks start to be the reviewing of the code more than just making and producing the code, I would say. But one thing that I think it's interesting regarding the code is I still cannot trust the code much if I for example, if I just run one agent, I still have to guide the agent to give me my result, but with one caveat, right? Which is changing very much now, is if you have a sequence of agents, a workflow of agents, a squad of agents, I would say, you can on each individually agent, like if they were cloud bots, for example, cloud agents, or if you have each agent a specific responsibility and you pass those agents across each other, ensuring that, okay, you are a test developer, you are a QA developer, and you're gonna check if this pipeline is passing, if this is going for, if the link is working for this repo, and then you have all of those running sequence, and if one of those fail, you could come back and you keep this loop happening, not just a raw loop of one single agent, but agents with their own responsibilities. You can have a really good result on the code.
Yeah, and then review agents after the fact as well to catch everything. We talked about being automation fans. This is the perfect time when we have something that can make it even more
and it's just
possible.
The beginning. And it can only get better from here. And we are just talking this, and this is like the way it is, just with 100 tokens per second or even less. But the thing is, in few months from now, or maybe 1 year from now, we'll be talking about thousands of tokens per second. This just reminds me of the beginning, the 90s and something that you could see the windows moving slowly in the screen, or things running very slowly, and then the CPUs just increasing and allow you to do things that you were not able to do in lower tokens per second, which is something that we are about to see happening when agents can speak so fast that you just click in a button and everything is there just like in a second.
And just in the last 3 months, it's been so much faster now since ChatGPT 5.4 and Codex Opus 4.5. That something happened around December, and it's a really, really interesting place we are in, and I'm looking very much forward to the Spark versions of ChatGPT that is like 10 times faster when they become intelligent enough. But I know you have a hobby project about Copilot.
Yeah.
Could you show that as an end to this?
Sure. Let me share this quick.
Yeah.
So I have here, I have here what I call Copilot Booster. So what happens is when you have when you work, I have here just on my screen 5, and from those 5, 2 are Copilots for the moment, right? So Copilot Booster is basically when I had to work on all of those terminals, I wasn't comfortable having to work in 5, 6, 7, 8 terminals and got lost on those terminals.
Know the feeling.
Exactly. And it's just crazy how you get lost in the context, because sometimes you open one browser and you are doing one work. And for me, working agent framework, semantic kernel, Microsoft Extensions AI, integrations in Azure, you're not specific working in one repo. Sometimes you are using the Copilot to ask a question about another repo, or contribution repo, or external repo, and you have many different clients, and you have all of these things sometimes sharing the same browser. And you get lost in the tabs in your browser, get lost in the number of windows in your screen. So I thought, how can I make this a little bit easier before we have a proper agentic UI? Because it's something that I'm quite surprised, at least in the Windows. I'm not seeing anyone providing like a Visual Studio for agents, or Visual Code for agents. And yeah, we see it in the Visual Code. On my perspective, when you open Visual Code and you go for a specific repo, what happens, for example, if I open here, I'm still basically limited to what is this specific repo, but I'm not working in one repo. I don't want to have my Copilot sessions specific to one repo. So it's normal to have multiple repos, but the IDEs, they are mostly just for one specific repo. And I didn't want to open one IDE for each of the repos that I have to work. Sometimes I'm using the Copilot CLI or any other CLI for agentic that are in repos that I don't necessarily need to see the code in the repo to change, or I'm just asking questions or doing some stuff. So here is where comes the idea, right? So the Copilot Booster is an application that I create really light, that allow me to use it in my Windows environment to have multiple instances without getting lost. So the overall idea is that I have a very small application that I can open a new Copilot session right in my taskbar, where I can access existing sessions. For example, I have 3 sessions running here, and I can look at what is my GitHub issue, what is my GitHub PR. If I click here, I open the terminal specific to my session, and I can really quickly change or go in between those sessions and make the questions. So, and one thing that allows me is sometimes you have multiple PRs for the same repo. And one thing that is becoming very very common today is you use the work tree from one Git to be able to work on different branches on the same repo at the same time. And this allows you to do that really, really easy. So all I need to do is really provide, for example, I want to create a new Copilot session, right? And I already bring here what is the most common folder that I'm been using, for example, semantic kernel, and I just click with a button and I can provide, okay, what is the name of the session that I want to give? I want to start this session from a PR or from an issue from the repo, or I want just use the same branch that is already in the semantic kernel. I would just, for the sake of the same branch, same branch example. So if I do this really quick, I have my Copilot just open on this. So I just keep on my device, and here I am in the context of semantic kernel. One thing that I also allow with this tool, so basically is once I have my Copilot, one thing that you can do is what are the allowed directories, tools, URLs, and you can just add all of those things. And every time that you open the Copilot CLI, it will be already configured for that session. So another thing that I normally do, and this is part of the solution, is okay, I have my Copilot running, but I want to now open the IDE and I want to be able to see. So I have, you're not limited just to the Visual Studio or Visual Code. You can add yourself your own, say to where is the IDE executable and what type of file should I look in the repo that I can open with the IDE. So for example, if it's a Java IDE, I just provide here the specific IDE for Java. Is failing my memory now, but I think it's
IntelliJ.
yeah, IntelliJ, perfect. So if I have the path for IntelliJ, and I just give here what is the name of the executable for the project file, and it will find for myself. And also some things to ignore so it doesn't take longer. So what that allows me is just, okay, I open the same branch, for example, in semantic kernel. I can click here and open with Visual Studio. And it will show me options to which projects in Visual Studio I can open, and it will give me the options. So Visual Code insiders as well, and I can have multiple IDEs set up for my repo. Another thing is Open Terminal and many other ways. One thing that is very common on this is when you have multiple sessions. Sometimes I open Copilot and if I close the Copilot, oh my God, I lost the session, and now I have one terminal and I have multiple terminals. So one thing that you can do, for example, I open this session here. I have a link for this session, so I don't get lost. I can really quick get my screen open here with a key hotkey. I just have this open, jump in and work, and not just limited to terminals. I can click here, open Edge. So this Edge will be specific to my session. So I can have my Edge browser doing something specific to the work that I'm doing. Let's say something that is not. Let's open, for example, here. And I have my browser session, and I just save the tabs, and now my session is have an Explorer pointer to it, so I can close and then recover my session, right? And those are some of the facilitators that comes with this change.
Yeah. so many people are trying to do something similar to this, but this seems to go way, way deeper in being able to go to issues and PRs and everything. Because in many cases, it's mostly just, here's the project, here's another project I can work on at the same time, and that helps. But being able to also go in and link it directly to specific browsers and stuff, because this is an unsolved area of productivity when, in the past we sat with one Visual Studio open and that was it, but now we need to do, or not need to, but we can handle 2 to 3 things. It took me some time to actually get used to all that context switching, but you slowly learn it.
Yeah, it takes some time, and I create this tool as something that I hope is temporary, because something bigger will come and solve this problem really quick. But I couldn't wait, and okay, we have a code really doing the job for us quick, and let's create something that I could use for myself, open source, give to the community. Anyone can jump in, access, and have that for yourself. So other examples, for example, here is when you have your function, everything that your agent generated, you can use and access the files that the agent generated. So review, and you can create your own tabs. So your sessions, you can just drag the sessions to the tabs that you want, and you can organize your work and have quick access to all of that stuff in a very, very easy way. Yeah, that's mostly all about it. Just making this a productivity tool that for the moment I'm using pretty much often.
That's very, very cool, and we'll of course link it in the description, so if people want to try it out and give it a star too.
Absolutely, would be very appreciated.
Yeah,
some stars.
yeah,
Super.
Cool. Do you have anything here at the end you want to plug, or anything other than of course everyone should use Agent Framework now instead of semantic kernel? It is quite easy to migrate, and you also have the AI migration part as well. But I did my manual migration, and it wasn't too difficult to do, to be honest. Of course, you need to learn Agent Framework first, different concepts and so on, but it's all for the better.
Yeah, the Agent Framework was built to be simple as well. So we have plenty of samples in Agent Framework that with two is too much, but maybe 3 lines of code, 6 lines of code, and you can have your agent running using Agent Framework. It's really simple. It's like, let me see if I can have that just quick, just to.
I'm sharing now here.
You sharing? Perfect.
Yeah. So it is really, really simple to go in, make your underlying agent, and then get as AI agent. So I've been doing some tech talks in various community groups in Denmark, and they are all impressed when we see, okay, 1 line, 2 lines, 3 lines, we're done. Then there's all the other stuff we can put on top, and it becomes very, very advanced. But getting there, getting structured output with, my pet preview that I bugged Wesley about too much, that we could get it in any place. But it's really, really cool the way you just do this, because when someone hears about AI, oh, that must be hard, I need to have a math degree, and it's just an API like any other, and it's one of the better APIs in my book.
Yeah, I appreciate for that, and yes, and we are all open, all transparent, and the office hours is every week. If you have a question, jump in, and we'll be there just to answer your questions, to make sure that everything is working as expected with Agent Framework as well. So the issues are open, we are listening, and this is very well tested framework. It's rare to see an issue that is big enough that, oh, we didn't thought about this. But yeah, normally if something happens, we will be there for you to address and
I
answer.
sometimes look at the issues now, and it's very, very niche that people find at the moment. If I do this combined with this and this and this, then this special thing happens.
And something also which is curious. Sometimes the issues come because the customer doesn't know how to break glass, and sometimes we don't have the feature because it's still not abroad. It's not supported by other providers. But we in the issue say, okay, but you can solve this way, or you have this another approach to apply this, or the issue can be sorted. So it's very common to see issues coming that are not necessarily issues. They are opportunities to improve our troubleshooting, our documentation, to make sure that if anyone comes to that question, the issue becomes also the knowledge base for anyone that has the same question. So it's been a really, really good journey, I would say.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Cool.
All right, Rasmus.
We had a good long
appreciate the time.
Yeah, and thank you so much for giving us a little bit of insight into how the cookie is made. It was very, very fun, and I'm just very much appreciating that the team have done this. And again, congratulations on version 1 and the hard work.
Thank you very much. I'll be happy to join in more sessions. I couldn't go very much into the middleware. I think more because I couldn't even navigate very well, and then later I found out that function was not a specific middleware that I was thinking it was. It's more that was the function invocation context, which it's a little bit more different, where you intercept functional calling. It will take more time just to start explaining, but I'll be happy to do some deep dives later, and we can set up something more specific, and I'll be happy to join and do something on that focus and provide
some specific focus features. If people seeing this, if you want to see that, then please let us know, and we will see what we can figure out.
Super.
Okay, but thank you so much for joining me, and have a nice evening.
You too, and you all. Cheers.